Bob, do you mind if I share my screen real quick? I'm going to just show that Schlerin optics thing that I saw, just because I want to show how, thinking outside the box is where we're getting a lot of this stuff with. I've had a lot of people laugh when we say that the sun isn't physical, and how could it not be physical? And it's because when we measure it, you should be able to see my video here.
You're up.
When we measure, when we measure the sun, just like it works like a reflection being different for two different people. So this is, I'm sure maybe you guys know about Schlerin optics. I saw this video and I saw you can actually make one of these relatively cheap and see cool things. Like, let me see, blows a hairdryer here in a second. It's pretty cool. But I wanted to see how you make one of these. So let me get my playlist up here. Oops.
Yeah, we actually talked about this about a year and a half ago. I was all excited when I saw it.
It's really cool.
It is.
Awesome. Where is my, hold on to the playlist. Okay. So that one there, I saw that, and then what I did was I was like, okay, how do I build one? So I went to build this, how do you build it one, and this guy's showing how to build it. And as he was doing this, it hit me like, oh my goodness, he's going to show here in a second when he puts his camera on this tripod, and he lines up his optics. He gets a reflection here, or a glare, whatever you want to call it. You'll see it here in 1 second as he's lining it up, and right here I didn't even know, and then there I saw it, and I said, wait a second, why does that look exactly like the sun? And let me go pause this for a second. And so when I saw that, then I went back to, of course, look at, why did I not get this thing to come up? Oh, I went back to look at like Dwayne Kellum's footage, because I wanted to see, what we see when we look at the sun. And you see this reflection, or this lens flare coming through here, and we're watching the sun above. And for those who think that there's clouds behind the sun, you just need to go to these kind of footages to realize that's preposterous. But as you see this thing floating around, if we go now back to here, and he's going to show as we get a little bit further in this video, and the crazy thing about this is since it's a reflection, the size would never change, meaning it would maintain the same angular diameter or angular size all day long, because it's a reflection. It's not going to change size because it's not a physical item moving away from you. It's a reflection. So as he went a little bit further doing it, look at this picture up here. You may think that is the sun. It's not. It's from this very experiment. So it is identical to the sun that we see in balloon footage. It's identical. So I don't, there's no reason to think that the sun is a physical item. Now, do we know what the sun is? No, maybe we're not meant to know. Maybe that's the incredibleness about it, is you're supposed to realize that something far more intelligent and there's a thought process behind this earth that is beyond our comprehension, and we should accept that and appreciate that. But somebody came along and said they know what it is, they know what it's doing, they know how far it is, they know how it works and how it operates. And if that's true, fantastic. But it certainly seems like if you've looked into as much as we have, because this here, if you showed anybody this picture and said, what's the sun doing here? They're going to tell you the sun, this is but it's not the sun. It's just a reflection. So, I mean, that's why I don't think that the sun is physical, and there's no reason to really think that it is. And it would kind of answer a lot of the questions that we have about the sun. So I just want to show that.
Right. And, also you might, if you could pull up that, the little diagram that shows the reflection. I forgot what it was. You gave us the link the other day on it. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Where you can drag around the reflective rays.
Oh, the coffee cup caustic.
The coffee cup caustic. That was really cool. And you're right. I don't believe that it's a physical object either. And in fact, if you listen to Eric Dollard, he says that it's not physical. It's not a burning ball of hydrogen. It is some sort of a converter. And this is one of the first times that we've heard about, counter space, that it's actually drawing this argument from counter space. And we kind of covered a little bit about that last week. But I totally agree. The sun is not a physical thing up there, and a lot of the Soho, depictions and things that we get from those type of telescopes are not realistic, because they are not at all even what we remotely observe by amateur, sun gazers. And Chris Van Maitre is a good example of that. And plus, you can find it all over the place, and it just looks nothing like this. So, pretty crazy. All right, so you are still presenting.
Okay.
Oh, so go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, this is what they call a coffee cup caustic. It's just a certain effect that happens with lights inside of a cup, and you can see here how it makes this thing. Well, there's this site called Saltire, SALTIRE.com. It's got some cool little apps. Well, this one's showing how the coffee cup caustic works. with the light source being here and the shine coming in here and how it wraps around. So for people who have questioned the 24-hour, I wouldn't call it a 24-hour sun, but 24-hour light possibly in the south, if you notice here, and again, you don't look at this circle as being like the map, because it would be bigger than that, but and as this thing is moving around, you would see how even when it's across from it, that it is lighting up this other side, whereas this side wouldn't be getting as much. So when you're looking here, this area here might be in dark, this area here would be in light, but the source would be over here. So pretty crazy that there's still a lot of things we find. And if you look at these pictures, look at this one right here, we see stuff like this in the sky every day,
all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
And so that's why when you see these things that ring a bell or make you think, hey, wait a second, I've seen that before, that's when you got to go look into that stuff, because we see all these in the sky. I don't even know what they call them. Sundogs, I guess? Is that what they call those in the sky?
Well, the sundogs are kind of more of a spot type of thing, like those.
Here we go.
I suppose that, I guess I do call sundogs when they actually expand out a little bit. So, yeah, you're right.
So see this is like the same. Yeah, I think there's another name for it. I think you're right, though. Sundogs is more like this. But these things here, this is exactly what we just saw in this coffee cup reflection here. So if you don't think that has anything to do with reality, it's just going to take a while until we figure out exactly what's going on. But when you just dance around and tell me that NASA's real all day and that the Earth's a ball because geometry says so, well, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah, that's one of the difficult things for capital S science to admit that they don't have all the answers. They'd rather err on the side of Mr. Know-It-All than to admit that they're not 100% in control. And it seems like that's why we sort of wound up hypothetically living on a spinning sphere, so that science could and philosophers could define and quantify everything right down to the 93 million mile sun, right? But when you start thinking about the sun as a non-physical object, like you mentioned, it took me a while to even come to look at that, because we're so sort of indoctrinated with the sun being this physical ball in space. It's hard to come away from that and think of other things. But once you start learning more about electromagnetics and the good old ionized plasma and the magnetoplane and all that good stuff, the physical infrastructure is there naturally to support that. And so I'm in total agreement with you guys, and that's interesting with the coffee.
Yeah, it's interesting that because I know people have always said, how can you have light over on this side if there's the source is on the other side? But when you actually hear how these things are explained, that's what's laughable. It just doesn't seem like, it's an explanation, but they actually say all these things that we see are caused by ice crystals that can be found high up in the sky, which I'm not disagreeing with that. But it says these crystals are known as diamond dust, and but basically they're just saying that all that we see here is because of different kinds of crystals in the sky, from light pillars, the parhelix circle, sundogs, halos. I guess halos is one of the words too. It's all just because of ice crystals.
Frankly, that's preposterous. I believe it's from a crystal, all right, but I don't think it's from ice crystals, especially suspended, like that, and causing these type of effects. Come on, guys. When do we say, all right, it looks like there is some sort of a firmament structure up there, right? And this would explain these phenomena perfectly if we were actually covered with, and whether it be EM or a physical crystalline structure as described in the Bible, like molten glass or however you want to look at it, there are so many things that seem to indicate that this thing is there. Going from rainbows all the way forward. But this is one of those things that now they just want us to suspend their story about gravity and say, okay, well, these little ice crystals are just staying up there hanging in suspended in air, in solid form, so that they can refract light like this. It's like, I'm sorry, I just can't buy that.
And here's the difference between people like us and people like, let's say, like Flat Earth Math, Charles, is if we say something about these sundogs, he would go to a page like this and then send you this link and call you an idiot. Or, maybe he wouldn't, but most people would, by saying, here's the answer, here's what stop questioning things because here's the answer. And we have the ability to look at this and say, no, I don't agree with it. I don't think that, your explanation for rainbows is true. I don't think your explanation for these sundogs and halos are true. And there's no problem in doing that, because if we haven't been shown the evidence that would allow us to consider it a fact, then we should keep looking and should keep trying to, until we prove it to ourselves. And this does not, because people can write words and say ice crystals and then different lattice structures or whatever they want to say, it's not a good enough explanation for me. Just like the fact that just because you say words that everything's pulled to the center of the earth, well, I'm sorry that I would just ask for evidence of that, besides the evidence being exactly the thing you're trying to prove. That's your evidence, is that, well, the earth is pulled to the center. Well, can I have something else? Can I see something in a lab? Can you show me any example of that? Because we don't see that. And they even say gravity has no effect on things at a small level, molecular level. Well, then, how do these planets form? How do these things start to come into existence? It's just all a bunch of words. And to me, like I said, there's no problem with asking questions. If you ask questions, you're either going to prove to yourself that what you were taught is a fact, is true, and then you can walk away and at least feel better about believing in things, or you're going to uncover deception. And well, what is the problem with either one of those? Yet people seem to have a huge problem with the questioning of what a bunch of men have got together and agreed upon, because conspiracies don't exist. No group of men have ever got together to hold power over others.